right, and we are live. Episode 2, Holographic Times. This is Mr. Maim, and we've got Cousin Brucey. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to be
All
here.
right. We are sharing your screen currently.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
see, what was the first thing that you wanted to cover? Did you have some sauce for us?
Well, I just have, figured if we're going to get into some of the details of the topics of UFOs and ET contacts and off-world happenings, if you will, and technologies that are abound to make their way to us. Popped up some things for the viewers to follow along and read and see it's not just us talking about it. These are things that people have been talking about and verified. So
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this has been declassified, and I think that's part of the reason that something like fake news, the term fake news, was even created in the first place, is to try and vet some of this information for themselves, because a lot of times, like I said, this stuff gets dropped and just nothing gets said for years at a time. So, and then by the time people talk about it and extrapolate it and break it down point by point, it just seems like some conspiracy theory. So it's definitely out there.
yep. Yeah, middle of a pandemic last year, the government decided to declass videos of UFOs that they've recorded and confirm they've done it. Nobody there was whistles and crickets, man. No, nothing happened. Nobody was
Was that the
talking
off-world
about it.
craft?
Yeah,
Yep.
and the research that came out was like sometime is June or July, I think, of 2020,
Mhm.
right in the middle of the pandemic. Swept under the rug.
Yeah, and they were pretty much openly admitting that. I think in one of them they were even talking about back engineering technology.
Yep.
So, in fact, well, I don't know if you had a couple of points you wanted to
As a
cover on
matter of
that page
fact,
there.
on that one right there, found this. Searching the old interweb, U.S. has secret evidence of UFOs breaking sound barrier without a sonic boom
Mm,
and doing moves that humans do not have technology for, said DNI Ratcliffe.
right on Fox. Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
clip.
John, you have seen in your role the most intelligence that anybody has seen other than the president as the director of national intelligence. And I've been wanting to ask you this next question for a while. I want to ask you about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. The Pentagon is going to come out with a report by June 1st. And in the $2.3 trillion omnibus appropriations legislation passed in January, it includes the Intelligence Authorization Act, money for the Pentagon to continue investigating UFOs. John, we're going to get this report June 1st. Can you tell us, have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon. And this actually is a program that's been in place for a few years in terms of a task force that has been there under the National Defense Authorization Act. But as you correctly point out, Maria, there's now a report that will be issued by the Pentagon, by the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence. I actually wanted to get this information out and declassified before I left office, but we weren't able to get it down into an unclassified format that we could talk about quickly enough. But frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. So in short, things that we are observing that are difficult to explain. And so, there's actually quite a few of those, and I think that information is being gathered and will be put out in a way that the American people can see. We always, when we see these things, Maria, we always look for a plausible explanation. Weather can cause disturbances, visual disturbances. Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized. But there are instances where we don't have good explanations for some of the things that we've seen. And, when that information becomes declassified, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that.
Can you tell us where it was seen?
Actually, all over the world. There have been sightings all over the world. And when we talk about sightings, the other thing I will tell you is it's not just a pilot or just a satellite or some intelligence collection. Usually we have multiple sensors that are picking up these things. And so, again, some of this are just they're unexplained phenomenon. There's actually quite a few more than have been made public. So I think it'll be healthy for as much of this information to get out there as possible so that the American people can see some of the things that we've been dealing with.
Okay, well, that is pretty extraordinary. We so appreciate that you're talking to us about this. Can this year get any weirder? Pandemic, shutdown, UFOs. John Ratcliffe, it's great to see you. Thank you so much.
You
Have
bet.
a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Maria.
The interesting thing about that is we humans do have the technology, just hasn't been disclosed.
Yep. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to, man. Once this big thing gets revealed, is a lot of the technologies that are going to be available that have been suppressed.
Yeah, it's
0 point energy, med beds. I mean,
it's going to be
ridiculous.
interesting to see, because all of this is something that I kind of completely forgot to talk about the first round, but what we're experiencing as the human race is kind of a phase by phase disclosure process, a systematic step by step, treading the water lightly in terms of deprogramming humanity into being able to absorb the truth of the reality that we live in. Because, that old term, truth is stranger than fiction, that didn't come from just anywhere. But the problem is that when you learn all of this information too quickly, you go from the world of death and taxes to this absolutely bizarre, outlandish, almost like a comedy. It's just truly a divine comedy. Just the interplay of everything and all the different forces at play on the table. It's truly amazing. But again, the problem is if you learn these things too quickly, it has a habit of kind of fracturing the psyche, and it's obviously not a good thing. And I'm assuming that these types of things were discovered the hard way, if you will, through the use of these projects. And so inevitably you would have had to come up with something as a system to, bring people along at their own pace, so to speak.
Yep. No, I'd 100% agree. I think if we went from 0 to med beds and aliens and brainwash and you name it, satanic child trafficking, the whole nine. I think it would have been too much for the population, so much that it wouldn't have seemed real or accepted as real.
A piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean baby.
What you want in a pancake is to have the consistency of young human flesh.
It's spongy, it has life to it.
You're with a guy with brightly colored undergarments, and you got soft human flesh in front of you.
I eat children. How old are you?
12.
Oh, okay. Only to 10.
Only
Okay,
to
that's
10.
good.
Okay, we're safe.
That's good.
Children and pineapple.
Children and pineapple.
Actions by Hillary Clinton do you think are the most satanic?
Which what?
Which actions by Hillary Clinton you think are the most satanic?
The willingness to kill babies, innocent babies.
And for those few that, the population that they did see it as reality and accepted it, I think it probably would have been an overload for the
You're right.
human psyche. I mean, that's to be shown that your entire, what you understand to be generations of belief,
Hmm.
just poof up and
Worldviews.
gone.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just up in smoke. Like, wow, everything just changed. So I think for sure it has to be a drip
Yeah, and
drip
you're right
slow,
too. If
slow
it was too
process.
quick, it would have only empowered the Mockingbird.
Yep,
You have to
exactly.
you have to unravel that system thread by thread, or else it just they built in fail safes for that.
Yep.
They built in fail safes for that, and they had a chance to perfect it over the course of 60 some odd years. Um, and if people don't believe that, hey, while we're talking here, let me try to find it. But there's a video from the 1970s. It's a Senate court hearing, and there's a CIA spokesman basically basically openly admitting they had, at the time, there were only a few programs running and on the air, even broadcasting, mind you. Again, this is earlier, late 70s, I can't remember. And again, we're talking about that type of a number being dispersed through only a few companies. I mean, just imagine with all of the media across the whole spectrum in today's world. Just imagine, I mean, it's got to be thousands. It's got to be thousands of assets.
Yep.
Let me try to find that.
Some of them are good, and you wouldn't have pinned them. Some of them you can
Some of
tell
them
right
are
away.
obvious.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Hey, Anderson, we had a great interview last time. I was wondering if you get a chance to look into Operation Mockingbird? You know what that is.
You're talking about something, what, from the 1950s, dude?
1970s official declassified program, how the CIA infiltrated the mainstream media from the higher up.
Right.
It's declassified.
I read about it in college, yes, I do. Thanks.
Do you think it's something that could possibly be happening today?
I have no comment for you, thanks, dude.
Why not? I mean, you didn't have any journalistic training except CIA training. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's a great segue too, because you have the these are the programmers for these assets in the Mockingbird media community are the programmers for I call it the Agent Smith effect. It's basically the built-in filter that people have in themselves, where it gets to a point where the media networks don't even have to censor in real time. They teach you how to censor yourself. It's the Agent Smith effect, 100%.
I like it.
You know?
I mean, I know when I woke up in phases. I know when I first started looking into things, I didn't accept what they were doing to the kids, and to the full extent. They were trafficking them, but I didn't, to how dark it was. My mind wasn't ready to accept it at previous times in my life, and then whether it be through consciousness expansion or some precipice being reached where my mind opens up to that, I eventually saw through that veil.
At first, it didn't make sense to me until, why would someone want to do that to a child? I just did that, and that's but part of the deprogramming that needs to happen is, some people do look at the HRCs of the world, and they think for some reason it just triggers this nostalgic remembrance of like their aunt or something near and dear to them. They've it's just this weird spell that they're able to cast on people.
Almost ideological, like they're idolizing golden calf statue effect,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so that when these things start to come out, I mean, no, of course they wouldn't do that. Of course they wouldn't do that.
It wasn't until recently, I think it was beginning of 2020, maybe late in 2019, that my mind fully accepted the idea of clones or some sort of AI type situation, body double.
Yeah.
Just seeing, trying to process that. There's no way that we have this technology, but we do.
That's just what they do. If people don't think that world leaders have had body doubles at the very least, not even talking about clones and androids and robotoid synthetics, etc., just body doubles. If people don't think that that's been a reality for the last 70 years, they're out of their mind. They're out of their
Yep.
mind. Of course there is. Of course there
The
is.
soft disclosure happened with Castro and all the body doubles that the media was finally letting on that he had. So
Hmm.
I
And I
remember
did
hearing
find,
about that when I was a kid.
by the way, I did find that CIA video it's from 75.
Very carefully. Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
So they admitted the very basic form of everything, and then they squirmed their way out of having to answer the rest of the questions in detail, is basically what that was.
Oh yeah. We can't answer this in this setting, sorry.
Mm-hmm. So there it is, people. Those are the receipts. There it is from them in the 70s. What we're experiencing today is a highly weaponized version of what you just heard. It's just another beast right now, and I don't think people are prepared for the unraveling of this. It is going to fracture a lot of minds, and it's going to be a big problem, but this is what happens when the situation goes so far where the most gentle form of fixing it is going to cause mass it's going to cause a mass schism of some sort. Some people call that the rapture. We're already seeing mainstream news. Of course, a lot of it is junk man conspiracy, but junk straw man conspiracy. I mean, so it's already doing a number, and so we need to figure out a more tactical version or form of this.